The morning fog rolled across Morecambe Bay like a gray blanket, slowly revealing the industrial silhouette of Barrow and Furnace. From her office window on the third floor of the Port Authority building, Sarah Mitchell watched the sun break through the mist, casting golden light across the dock cranes and submarine hulls. As port director, she had seen many dawns from the same window, but today felt different. Today carried the weight of anticipation that had been building for months. The phone on her desk buzzed with its familiar electronic tone. Sarah turned from the window, her reflection briefly caught in the glass. A woman in her 50s with graying hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing the navy blue blazer that had become her uniform for important meetings. She picked up the receiver, expecting another routine call about shipping schedules or maintenance reports. Sarah Mitchell speaking. Ms. Mitchell, this is James Whitworth from Buckingham Palace. I believe you've been expecting my call. Sarah's hand tightened around the phone. She had indeed been expecting this call, though the reality of hearing those words, Buckingham Palace, still sent a small thrill through her chest. For weeks, there had been whispers, unofficial conversations, and careful diplomatic language that suggested something significant was brewing. Now, it seemed the waiting was about to end. Yes, Mr. Whitworth. Thank you for calling. I assume this is regarding the matter we discussed through intermediaries? Indeed it is. I'm pleased to inform you that His Majesty King Charles III has made his decision regarding the Port of Barrow. The King has chosen to bestow upon your port the prestigious designation of Royal Port of Barrow. This honor recognizes the port's exceptional contributions to British naval defense, maritime commerce, and industrial heritage. Sarah sat down heavily in her chair, the magnitude of the announcement settling over her like a warm coat. A royal port designation was one of the highest honors that could be bestowed upon a British maritime facility. Only a handful of ports across the United Kingdom held such a title, and each had earned it through centuries of distinguished service to the Crown and the nation. This is extraordinary news, Mr. Whitworth. On behalf of everyone here at the port, I cannot express how honored we are by His Majesty's recognition. The King was particularly impressed by the port's role in maintaining Britain's naval supremacy through the construction and maintenance of our nuclear submarine fleet. The workers of Barrow have been the silent guardians of our national security for generations, and this honor acknowledges their vital contribution. As James Whitworth continued to explain the ceremonial details that would follow, Sarah's mind wandered to the thousands of men and women who had walked through the port gates over the decades. Shipbuilders, welders, engineers, crane operators, dock workers, and countless others who had dedicated their lives to the massive industrial complex that sprawled along the Furnace Peninsula. This honor wasn't just for the port as an institution. It was recognition of every calloused hand that had helped shape steel into vessels that protected British waters. The Port of Barrow had been the birthplace of Britain's nuclear submarine program. Within its vast shipyards, vessels like HMS Resolution, HMS Vanguard, and the revolutionary Astute-class submarines had taken shape. These weren't just ships. They were floating fortresses that carried Britain's nuclear deterrent into the world's oceans, maintaining the delicate balance of power that had kept the peace for decades. After ending the call with Whitworth, Sarah immediately reached for her secure phone line to contact BAE Systems, the defense contractor that operated the shipyards within the port complex. The news would need to be coordinated carefully. This wasn't just about the Port Authority, but about the entire industrial ecosystem that made Barrow one of the most strategically important locations in the United Kingdom. David Harrison, the managing director of BAE's Maritime Division, answered on the second ring. Sarah had worked closely with David for over a decade, navigating the complex relationship between the civilian port operations and the highly classified submarine construction that formed the heart of Barrow's industrial identity. David, I have news that I think will interest you. We've just received word from Buckingham Palace. There was a pause on the line. David, like many in the defense industry, was accustomed to government communications, but direct contact from the royal household was decidedly unusual. Go on, Sarah. You have my full attention. King Charles has designated us as the Royal Port of Barrow. The announcement will be made public within the week, followed by a formal ceremony where the king himself will present the charter. David's response was immediate and enthusiastic. "That's tremendous news, Sarah. Absolutely tremendous. Do you realize what this means? Not just for us, but for the entire town, the entire region." Sarah did realize, perhaps more than anyone. She had grown up in Barrow, the daughter of a shipyard worker who had spent 40 years building submarines for the Royal Navy. She understood intimately how the identity of the town was woven together with the work that happened within the port's boundaries. When the shipyard thrived, the entire community prospered. When orders slowed, the effects rippled through every business, every family, every aspect of local life. The designation as a royal port would bring prestige, certainly, but it would also bring practical benefits. Royal designation often led to increased government investment, improved infrastructure funding, and enhanced international recognition that could attract new business opportunities. For a town that had weathered economic uncertainties and the changing nature of British industry, this recognition represented hope for a secure and prosperous future. News of the royal honor spread quickly through the port complex, despite official requests to maintain confidentiality until the formal announcement. In the shipyard cafeteria, workers gathered in small groups, their conversations mixing excitement with the practical cynicism that came from years of experience with government promises and corporate restructurings. Tom Bradley, a 58-year-old welder who had spent his entire adult life working on submarine hulls, sat with his lunch companions discussing what the royal designation might mean for their jobs and their community. Tom's hands bore the scars and calluses of decades spent working with heavy steel and industrial equipment, but his eyes held the sharp intelligence of someone who understood both the technical complexities of his work and the broader economic forces that shaped his industry. "My grandfather worked these yards during the war," Tom told his colleagues. "Built destroyers that fought in the Atlantic. My father worked here during the Cold War, building the first nuclear subs. Now here I am, still building the boats that keep Britain safe. 3 generations of my family have given their working lives to this place." Having the king recognize that, well, it means something. Tom's words reflected a sentiment that ran deep through the Barrow community. This wasn't just a job for most people. It was a calling, a tradition, a source of identity that connected them to something larger than their individual lives. The submarines they built weren't just products. They were guardians of British sovereignty, technological marvels that represented the very best of British engineering and industrial capability. The technical complexity of modern submarine construction was staggering. Each Astute-class submarine contained over 1 million individual components, required 7 years to build, and represented an investment of over £1 billion. The precision required was extraordinary. Nuclear reactor components had to be manufactured to tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters, while the hull design required computer modeling capabilities that pushed the boundaries of engineering simulation. Margaret Foster, a 62-year-old quality control inspector, had worked her way up through the ranks from an entry-level position as a filing clerk. Over her 40-year career, she had witnessed the transformation of submarine construction from an industry that relied heavily on manual craftsmanship to one that incorporated cutting-edge digital technology and automated manufacturing processes. "When I started here in the early 1980s, Margaret explained to a group of newer employees, we were still using paper blueprints and slide rules for some calculations. Now, every component is tracked by computer, every weld is documented digitally, and we use virtual reality systems to train workers before they ever touch an actual submarine." The evolution Margaret described reflected broader changes in British manufacturing, but it also highlighted how Barrow had successfully adapted to remain competitive in an increasingly complex global marketplace. The port's designation as a royal port was recognition not just of its historical contributions, but of its continued relevance and importance to British strategic interests. In the administrative offices overlooking the construction halls, planners were already working on preparations for the royal visit. The logistics of hosting a monarch at an active industrial site presented unique challenges. Security considerations alone would require coordination between local police, MI5, the Royal Protection Command, and military personnel. The ceremonial aspects would need to balance royal protocol with the practical realities of a working shipyard. Emma Richardson, the port's director of communications, had been tasked with managing the media aspects of the royal visit. A former journalist who had transitioned into corporate communications, Emma understood both the opportunities and the challenges that would come with increased public attention. This is the kind of story that captures public imagination, Emma explained to her small team. People are fascinated by submarines, intrigued by royal ceremonies, and interested in stories about communities that contribute to national security. But we need to be careful about how much we reveal about our operations. Some aspects of what we do here need to remain confidential for obvious reasons. The balance between transparency and security was a constant consideration in Barrow. The port operated in the unusual space between civilian commerce and military production, between public accountability and classified operations. Workers carried security clearances that prevented them from discussing many aspects of their jobs, even with family members. Entire sections of the shipyard were off-limits to anyone without specific authorization. Yet the community took pride in its role as guardians of British naval capabilities. Local schools incorporated maritime history into their curricula, teaching children about the proud tradition of shipbuilding that had shaped their town. The annual Barrow Maritime Festival celebrated this heritage, drawing visitors from across the region to see displays of maritime artifacts and learn about the ongoing work of the shipyard. The announcement of the royal designation would elevate this local pride to national recognition. Tourism officials were already predicting increased visitor interest, which could benefit local businesses that had struggled during recent economic downturns. Hotels, restaurants, and shops that served the shipyard workers were likely to see new customers drawn by the prestige of the royal port designation. Local historian Dr. Patricia Williams had spent decades documenting the evolution of Barrow from a small fishing village to one of Britain's most important industrial centers. Her research had traced the port's development through the Victorian era, when iron ore mining and steel production first brought industrial prosperity to the region, through the two world wars, when Barrow's shipyards became crucial to Britain's naval defense. The designation as a royal port represents the culmination of over 150 years of maritime excellence, Dr. Williams observed. This community has consistently demonstrated its ability to adapt to changing technological demands while maintaining the highest standards of craftsmanship and innovation. The royal recognition acknowledges not just what we've accomplished, but our potential for continued contributions to British maritime supremacy. The historical perspective Dr. Williams provided helped contextualize the significance of King Charles's decision. Royal port designations were not granted lightly or frequently. They represented a judgment that a particular facility had demonstrated sustained excellence and strategic importance over an extended period. For Barrow, this recognition validated decades of investment in infrastructure, technology, and human capital. As word of the royal honor continued to spread through the community, local government officials began planning for the economic opportunities that would accompany the increased profile. Barrow Borough Council had already been working on initiatives to diversify the local economy beyond its traditional dependence on shipbuilding, recognizing that long-term prosperity required multiple industrial foundations. The royal port designation could provide leverage for attracting additional maritime businesses, research facilities, and educational institutions. Universities with naval architecture programs might be interested in establishing satellite campuses or research partnerships. Companies involved in marine technology development could see advantages in locating near the expertise and facilities that had earned royal recognition. Council leader Jennifer Murphy had represented Barrow for over 15 years, guiding the community through periods of economic uncertainty and industrial change. She understood both the opportunities and the responsibilities that came with the royal designation. This honor brings with it expectations, Murphy explained to her fellow council members. We need to ensure that we continue to merit the royal recognition through ongoing excellence in our operations, our community development, and our contributions to British prosperity and security. This is not just a ceremony. It's a commitment to maintaining the standards that earned us this distinction. The commitment Murphy described extended beyond the immediate port operations to encompass the entire supporting ecosystem that made Barrow's maritime success possible. Local technical colleges that trained skilled workers, suppliers who provided specialized materials and components, and service businesses that supported the large workforce all played crucial roles in maintaining the port's capabilities. The Furness College, which provided technical training for shipyard workers, had already begun planning expanded programs that would leverage the increased prestige of the Royal Port designation. Principal Robert Thompson saw opportunities to attract students from across the United Kingdom and even internationally, drawn by the chance to train at a facility with royal recognition. We're not just training workers, Thompson explained. We're developing the next generation of specialists who will maintain Britain's maritime capabilities for decades to come. The royal designation validates the quality of education and training we provide, and it opens doors for partnerships with other institutions that share our commitment to maritime excellence. The educational dimension of Barrow's maritime identity extended beyond formal institutions to include the informal transfer of knowledge that occurred within families and communities. Many shipyard workers came from families with multiple generations of maritime experience, creating a depth of practical knowledge that complemented formal technical training. This intergenerational knowledge transfer was particularly important in submarine construction, where the tolerance for error was essentially zero. Nuclear propulsion systems required precision and reliability that could only be achieved through the combination of advanced technology and experienced craftsmanship. The workers who assembled these systems carried responsibility for the safety of submarine crews and the effectiveness of Britain's naval deterrent. As the day progressed, Sarah Mitchell found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had started her career as a junior administrator in the Port Authority, working her way up through various departments before being appointed port director 5 years earlier. Her tenure had been marked by significant challenges, budget constraints, evolving security requirements, and the constant pressure to maintain operational efficiency while supporting increasingly complex submarine construction projects. The royal designation represented validation not just of the port's capabilities, but of the leadership decisions that had positioned Barrow for continued success in an increasingly competitive global marketplace. Investments in digital infrastructure, workforce development, and facility modernization were paying dividends in terms of operational efficiency and quality outcomes. Looking ahead, Sarah could see both opportunities and challenges on the horizon. The Royal Navy's requirements for submarine capabilities continued to evolve in response to changing global threats and technological possibilities. Maintaining Barrow's position as the center of British submarine construction would require ongoing adaptation and innovation. The royal visit itself would provide an opportunity to showcase not just the port's current capabilities, but its vision for the future. Plans were already being developed for demonstrations of advanced manufacturing techniques, presentations of ongoing research and development projects, and discussions of long-term strategic planning that would ensure continued relevance and effectiveness. As evening approached, and the shipyard workers headed home to share news of the royal honor with their families, Sarah remained in her office, working through the detailed planning that would be required for the upcoming ceremony. The logistics were complex, but the underlying message was simple. King Charles had recognized that the port of Barrow represented something essential to British identity and security. The designation as Royal Port of Barrow would formally acknowledge what the community had always known, that their work mattered, that their contributions were valued, and that their future remained secure as long as Britain required the maritime capabilities that only they could provide. The announcement came exactly 1 week later, during the traditional Wednesday morning session of Prime Minister's questions in the House of Commons. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak stood at the dispatch box, the green leather benches filled with members of Parliament who had no idea they were about to witness a moment of maritime history. Mr. Speaker, I am delighted to inform the House that His Majesty the King has graciously agreed to bestow upon the port of Barrow in Furness the prestigious designation of Royal Port. This honor recognizes the exceptional contributions of Barrow's maritime community to our nation's defense and industrial heritage. The chamber erupted in applause, with MPs from both sides of the aisle rising to their feet. Conservative members representing Cumbrian constituencies beamed with obvious pride, while Labour MPs nodded approvingly at the recognition being given to a community built around skilled industrial work. Even the Scottish National Party members, often critical of Westminster decisions, applauded the acknowledgement of maritime excellence. John Woodcock, the MP for Barrow and Furness, had been given advance notice of the announcement, but still felt his chest swell with emotion as he heard the Prime Minister's words. John had represented the constituency for over a decade, fighting consistently for recognition of his community's strategic importance to British defense capabilities. This royal designation represented the culmination of years of advocacy and political maneuvering. Following the parliamentary announcement, the media response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. BBC News led their evening broadcast with footage of submarine construction at Barrow, while newspapers across the political spectrum published editorials praising the decision. The Times called it long overdue recognition for Britain's submarine builders, while The Guardian emphasized the economic benefits for a working-class community. Television crews descended on Barrow within hours of the announcement, seeking interviews with shipyard workers, local officials, and longtime residents. The main gates of BAE Systems became an impromptu press conference location, with reporters attempting to capture the atmosphere of excitement and pride that permeated the industrial complex. Gary Wilson, a 45-year-old submarine engineer, found himself unexpectedly thrust into the spotlight when a BBC reporter approached him during his lunch break. Gary had spent 22 years working on nuclear propulsion systems, gradually developing the specialized expertise that made him one of the most valuable technicians in the entire facility. "It's about time, really," Gary told the reporter, his Yorkshire accent thick with emotion. "People don't understand what we do here, how important it is. These submarines we build, they're not just machines. They're the reason Britain can sleep safely at night. The fact that the King recognizes that, well, it means everything to us." Gary's words reflected a sentiment that extended far beyond individual pride. The workers of Barrow had long felt that their contributions to national security were underappreciated by the broader public. Nuclear submarines operated in secrecy, their missions classified, their capabilities deliberately understated. The men and women who built these vessels rarely received public recognition for their role in maintaining British naval supremacy. The royal designation changed that dynamic fundamentally. Suddenly, national media outlets were explaining the technical complexities of submarine construction, the strategic importance of Britain's nuclear deterrent, and the skilled workforce required to maintain these capabilities. For the first time in decades, the general public was learning about the extraordinary industrial achievements happening in this corner of Cumbria. International reaction was equally significant. Naval attaches from allied countries, the United States, France, Australia, issued congratulatory statements that emphasized the importance of British submarine technology to global maritime security. The Australian government, which had recently committed to purchasing nuclear submarines based on British designs, sent a formal letter of congratulations that highlighted the strategic partnership enabled by Barrow's capabilities. French naval officials, despite their own proud submarine construction tradition, acknowledged the technical excellence that had earned Barrow its royal recognition. The French submarine program had faced recent challenges with cost overruns and technical difficulties, making the steady productivity and innovation of British submarine construction even more noteworthy. Admiral Sir Ben Key, the First Sea Lord and professional head of the Royal Navy, issued a statement that captured the strategic significance of the royal designation. The Royal Port of Barrow represents the beating heart of Britain's maritime defense. The submarines constructed in this facility provide the continuous at-sea deterrent that has kept our nation secure for over 50 years. This royal recognition acknowledges not just past achievements, but our confidence in Barrow's continued role as the cornerstone of British naval capability. The Admiral's statement carried particular weight because of his personal experience with Barrow-built submarines. As a young officer, he had served aboard HMS Trafalgar, one of the older generation of attack submarines constructed in the 1980s. Later in his career, he had commanded HMS Astute, the lead ship of the newest class of attack submarines that represented the cutting edge of underwater warfare technology. Behind the scenes, preparations for the royal visit were proceeding with military precision. The palace had indicated that King Charles would spend an entire day in Barrow, touring the shipyard facilities, meeting with workers and their families, and formally presenting the royal charter that would make the port's new status official. Security planning required coordination between multiple agencies. The Royal Protection Command worked closely with Cumbria Constabulary to develop comprehensive security protocols. MI5 conducted background checks on anyone who would have direct contact with the king. Military personnel from the nearby Devonshire Dock Hall, where nuclear submarines were assembled, provided additional security expertise. The ceremonial aspects of the visit required careful balance between royal protocol and the industrial environment where the ceremony would take place. Buckingham Palace protocol officers worked with port management to identify suitable locations for various events throughout the day. The massive construction hall where submarines took shape would provide a dramatic backdrop for the main ceremony, but acoustics and sightlines needed to be carefully managed. Local businesses throughout Barrow and the surrounding area began preparing for the economic boost that would accompany the royal visit. Hotels reported bookings from journalists, security personnel, and visitors hoping to witness the historic ceremony. Restaurants developed special menus to commemorate the occasion. Souvenir shops ordered commemorative items featuring the royal port designation. The Furness Railway Pub, an establishment that had served shipyard workers for over a century, became an unofficial gathering place for discussions about the upcoming royal visit. Landlord Michael Thompson had been serving the maritime community for 30 years, and he understood the significance of the royal recognition better than most. "My customers have built every submarine in the British fleet," Michael explained to a visiting journalist. "They've worked through recessions, government cutbacks, and corporate reorganizations. They've never complained about the secrecy requirements or the security restrictions that come with their jobs. This royal visit is the first time anyone outside this community has really acknowledged what they do, how important it is." Michael's observations highlighted an important aspect of life in Barrow, the way that national security requirements shaped everyday community interactions. Many residents carried security clearances that prevented them from discussing their work even with family members. Social conversations were carefully managed to avoid inadvertent disclosure of classified information. Children grew up understanding that their parents' work was important but couldn't be talked about in detail. The royal designation would change some of these dynamics, allowing the community to celebrate its achievements more openly while still maintaining necessary security protocols. The ceremony itself would showcase aspects of submarine construction that could be publicly demonstrated without compromising sensitive technologies or operational capabilities. Educational institutions throughout the region began developing programs to capitalize on the increased attention and prestige associated with the Royal Port designation. The University of Cumbria announced plans for expanded maritime engineering courses that would feed directly into Barrow's workforce needs. Local secondary schools developed curriculum modules about submarine technology and naval history. Dr. Sarah Henderson, a marine engineering professor who had been recruited from Imperial College London to help develop the university's new programs, saw tremendous opportunities in Barrow's enhanced status. Her research focused on advanced materials used in submarine construction, work that required close collaboration with BAE Systems and access to the specialized facilities available only in Barrow. The Royal Port designation validates what those of us in the maritime engineering community have always known, Dr. Henderson explained. Barrow represents one of the most sophisticated submarine construction capabilities in the world. The technical challenges involved in building nuclear submarines require innovation at every level: materials science, nuclear engineering, hydrodynamics, advanced manufacturing. This royal recognition will help attract the best students and researchers to work on these challenges. The university partnership represented a crucial element in Barrow's long-term sustainability. As submarine technology continued to evolve, the workforce would need increasingly sophisticated skills and knowledge. Traditional apprenticeship programs remained important for developing practical capabilities, but cutting-edge submarine design required theoretical understanding that could only be provided through advanced education. International defense contractors began expressing increased interest in establishing partnerships or subsidiary operations in Barrow. The Royal Port designation served as a quality certification that enhanced the marketability of British submarine technology in the global defense marketplace. Countries considering submarine acquisitions viewed the royal recognition as evidence of sustained excellence and reliability. The economic implications extended beyond immediate defense contracts to encompass broader maritime industries. Offshore renewable energy projects, deep-sea mining operations, and advanced marine research all required capabilities that overlapped with submarine construction expertise. Barrow's enhanced international profile could attract investment in these emerging sectors. Local government officials worked closely with regional development agencies to ensure that the economic opportunities created by the royal designation would benefit the entire community. Employment training programs were expanded to help local residents qualify for the skilled positions that would be created by increased business activity. Jennifer Murphy, the council leader, coordinated regular meetings with business leaders, union representatives, and community organizations to develop comprehensive strategies for leveraging the royal recognition. These discussions balanced enthusiasm for new opportunities with realistic assessments of the challenges involved in economic diversification. We can't assume that the royal designation automatically guarantees prosperity, Murphy cautioned her colleagues. We need to work systematically to convert prestige into practical benefits for our residents. That means investing in infrastructure, supporting small businesses, and ensuring that our young people have the skills they need to participate in whatever new opportunities emerge. The union representatives who participated in these planning discussions brought important perspectives about workforce development and employment security. Dave Mitchell, the local organizer for GMB, the union representing many shipyard workers, emphasized the importance of maintaining the community solidarity that had made Barrow's industrial success possible. Our members take tremendous pride in their work, Dave explained. They understand that building submarines requires absolute commitment to quality and security. But they also need to know that their contributions are valued and that their families have secure futures. The royal designation should strengthen their position, not create unrealistic expectations that might lead to disappointment. Dave's concerns reflected the complex relationship between individual workers and the large corporations and government agencies that ultimately controlled employment in Barrow. While BAE Systems provided stable, well-paying jobs, workers remained vulnerable to strategic decisions made in corporate boardrooms and government ministries far from Cumbria. The royal designation provided some insulation against these vulnerabilities by raising the political profile of Barrow's operations. Politicians would find it more difficult to justify cutbacks or relocations that affected a facility with royal recognition. International customers would be reassured by the royal imprimatur when making multi-billion-pound submarine purchase decisions. As preparations for the royal visit intensified, details about the ceremony began to emerge. The king would arrive by helicopter, landing in a secure area within the shipyard complex. His first stop would be a briefing session where senior engineers would explain current submarine construction projects using scale models and advanced visualization technology. The main ceremony would take place in the massive Devonshire Dock Hall, where nuclear submarines underwent final assembly. The space was large enough to accommodate several hundred guests while providing dramatic visual evidence of Barrow's industrial capabilities. Two partially completed submarines would serve as backdrop for the royal presentation of the charter. Selected workers from across the port's operations would have opportunities to meet personally with King Charles. These interactions were carefully planned to represent the diversity of skills and backgrounds that contributed to Barrow's success. Apprentices, experienced craftsmen, engineers, administrators, and support staff would all participate in the ceremonial program. The charter itself was being prepared by royal calligraphers using traditional materials and techniques. The document would formally establish the Royal Port of Barrow designation and outline the privileges and responsibilities that accompanied royal recognition. Historical precedents suggested that the charter would emphasize the port's contributions to British naval supremacy and its commitment to continued excellence. Community organizations throughout Barrow planned complementary events to maximize the benefits of increased attention during the royal visit. The local museum prepared special exhibitions about the port's history and its role in British naval development. Cultural groups organized performances that celebrated the maritime heritage that defined community identity. Churches across different denominations planned services of thanksgiving that would acknowledge both the royal honor and the broader blessings that had enabled Barrow's success. The maritime community had always maintained strong spiritual traditions, recognizing the dangers and uncertainties that accompanied work connected to the sea. Father Patrick O'Brien, who had served the Catholic parish that included many shipyard families for over 20 years, saw the royal designation as validation of values that extended beyond industrial achievement. The people of this community have always understood that their work serves something greater than individual advancement, he reflected. Building the ships that protect our nation requires not just technical skill, but moral commitment. The royal recognition acknowledges both dimensions of what we do here. The interfaith dimension of community response reflected Barrow's diverse population, which included families whose maritime traditions spanned multiple generations alongside more recent arrivals drawn by employment opportunities. Hindu and Muslim families, Sikh communities, and Protestant denominations all found ways to celebrate the royal honor while maintaining their distinct cultural identities. As the day for the royal visit approached, excitement throughout Barrow reached fever pitch. Local schools planned to line the route that King Charles would travel, giving children the opportunity to witness royal history. Businesses decorated their storefronts with royal and naval themes. Community groups organized street parties and commemorative events. The transformation of Barrow's public spaces reflected the community's determination to present their best face to royal scrutiny. Volunteer groups organized cleanup campaigns. Local artists painted murals celebrating maritime heritage, and civic organizations coordinated flower displays that would enhance the visual appeal of the routes the king would travel. These preparations represented more than mere ceremony. They demonstrated the pride and hope that the royal designation had generated throughout the community. After decades of economic uncertainty and public indifference to their contributions, the people of Barrow were finally receiving the recognition they had always deserved. The morning of the royal visit dawned crisp and clear, with autumn sunlight streaming across Morecambe Bay and illuminating the massive cranes that defined Barrow's industrial skyline. By 7 in the morning, crowds had already begun gathering along the planned route, despite the ceremony not being scheduled to begin until 11. Children clutched small Union Jack flags distributed by local schools, while adults checked their phones constantly for updates about the king's travel schedule. Security preparations had transformed the normally bustling port into something resembling a military installation. Armed police officers stood at strategic intervals, their presence both reassuring and slightly intimidating for residents unaccustomed to such visible security measures. Sniffer dogs had swept every building the king would enter, while helicopters conducted aerial reconnaissance of the surrounding area. Inside the BAE Systems facility, Final preparations were proceeding with clockwork precision. Workers who had been selected to meet King Charles underwent last-minute briefings about royal protocol. Engineers double-checked the demonstration equipment that would be used to explain submarine construction processes. Facility managers walked through the planned route one final time, ensuring that every detail met the exacting standards required for royal visits. Sarah Mitchell stood in her office, reviewing the schedule that had consumed her attention for weeks. As port director, she would have the honor of formally welcoming King Charles to the royal port of Barrow, the first time those words would be spoken in an official context. The magnitude of the moment wasn't lost on her. This ceremony would mark the culmination of over 150 years of maritime excellence in Barrow. At precisely 10:30, the distinctive sound of royal helicopters could be heard approaching from the south. The King's helicopter, escorted by support aircraft, circled the facility once before landing in the secure area that had been prepared within the shipyard complex. Ground crews who had practiced this moment multiple times moved efficiently to secure the aircraft, while Royal Protection officers established their final security perimeter. King Charles emerged from the helicopter wearing a navy blue overcoat that seemed perfectly suited to the maritime setting. At 74, the king moved with the careful dignity that befitted his years while maintaining the engaged curiosity that had always characterized his approach to public duties. His eyes immediately took in the massive submarine hulls visible through the open doors of the construction halls, the scale and complexity of the industrial operation clearly making an impression. Sarah Mitchell, accompanied by David Harrison from BE Systems and local dignitaries, stepped forward to greet the king. The formal introductions proceeded according to protocol, but there was an unmistakable warmth in King Charles's manner that put everyone at ease. He had clearly prepared for this visit by studying the technical aspects of submarine construction and the historical significance of Barrow's contributions to British naval power. "Your Majesty," Sarah began, "on behalf of everyone at the Royal Port of Barrow, welcome to our facility. We are deeply honored by your presence and profoundly grateful for the royal recognition you have bestowed upon our community." "The honor is entirely mine," King Charles replied, his voice carrying clearly in the crisp morning air. "The work that takes place here represents some of the finest achievements of British engineering and industrial capability. I have looked forward to this visit for months, eager to meet the men and women whose skills and dedication keep our nation secure." The first stop on the royal tour was a briefing room where senior engineers had prepared presentations about current submarine construction projects. Using detailed scale models and advanced computer simulations, they explained the technical complexities involved in building nuclear submarines. King Charles asked thoughtful questions that demonstrated his genuine interest in understanding both the engineering challenges and the strategic implications of the work. Dr. Elizabeth Warner, BAE's chief submarine engineer, had the privilege of explaining the Dreadnought-class submarines that would replace Britain's current nuclear deterrent fleet. These vessels represented the cutting edge of submarine technology, incorporating innovations in reactor design, stealth capabilities, and weapons systems that would maintain British naval supremacy for decades to come. "Your Majesty," Dr. Warner explained, "each Dreadnought-class submarine represents approximately 7 years of construction work involving thousands of skilled workers. The precision required is extraordinary. Nuclear reactor components must be manufactured at tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters, while the hull design incorporates stealth technologies that make these vessels virtually undetectable to enemy sonar." King Charles studied the detailed cutaway model that revealed the submarine's internal layout, clearly fascinated by the complexity of systems required to operate safely underwater for months at a time. His questions focused on both technical details and the human factors involved in submarine operations, the training required for crew members, the psychological challenges of extended underwater deployment, and the reliability standards necessary to ensure crew safety. The royal party then moved to the main construction hall, where work was proceeding on multiple submarine projects simultaneously. The scale of the operation was breathtaking, massive steel sections being precisely positioned by computer-controlled cranes, welders working with equipment that cost more than most people's homes, and quality control inspectors ensuring that every component met specifications that allowed for no margin of error. Workers throughout the facility had been given the opportunity to continue their normal duties during the royal visit, creating an authentic demonstration of the shipyard's capabilities. King Charles stopped frequently to speak with individual workers, asking about their specific responsibilities and their experiences working on such technically demanding projects. Tommy Richardson, a 60-year-old welder who had spent his entire career working on submarine hulls, found himself in conversation with the king about the evolution of welding technology over the decades. Tommy's weathered hands and safety-scarred arms told the story of a lifetime spent working with heavy industrial equipment, but his knowledge of metallurgy and joining techniques rivaled that of engineers with advanced degrees. The precision required now is nothing like when I started, Tommy explained to King Charles. We used to rely mainly on experience and manual skills. Now every weld is computer-monitored, X-rayed, and documented. The submarines we're building today will still be operating 50 years from now, so everything has to be perfect. King Charles listened intently to Tommy's explanation, clearly appreciating the dedication required to maintain such exacting standards day after day, year after year. The conversation highlighted one of the most remarkable aspects of submarine construction, the way it combined cutting-edge technology with traditional craftsmanship skills that had been passed down through generations of workers. The royal tour continued through the facility's training center, where apprentices were learning the specialized skills required for submarine construction. King Charles spoke with young workers who represented the future of British submarine capabilities, asking about their career aspirations and their understanding of the strategic importance of their work. Rebecca Foster, a 19-year-old apprentice electrician, had the opportunity to demonstrate some of the complex wiring procedures required for submarine electrical systems. Her workstation included simulation equipment that allowed trainees to practice on realistic submarine components without the pressure of working on actual vessels worth hundreds of millions of pounds. Your Majesty, Rebecca explained, submarine electrical systems are incredibly complex because they have to operate reliably underwater for months at a time. Every connection has to be perfect, and we have to understand not just how to install systems, but how they interact with nuclear propulsion, life support, weapons, and communications equipment. King Charles was clearly impressed by Rebecca's knowledge and confidence, recognizing that she represented a new generation of workers who would carry forward Barrow's traditions of excellence. The apprenticeship programs had always been crucial to maintaining the specialized workforce required for submarine construction, and the royal visit provided an opportunity to showcase the quality of training that ensured continuity of capabilities. The centerpiece of the royal visit was the formal ceremony in the Devonshire Dock Hall, where King Charles would present the royal charter that officially designated Barrow as a royal port. The massive construction facility had been transformed for the occasion, with a temporary stage erected beneath the towering cranes and partially completed submarines that provided dramatic testimony to the port's capabilities. Several hundred invited guests filled the ceremony space. Workers and their families, local officials, business leaders, representatives from allied navies, and dignitaries from across the maritime industry. The audience represented not just the immediate Barrow community, but the broader network of organizations and institutions that supported British submarine capabilities. Admiral Sir Ben Key, the First Sea Lord, delivered opening remarks that placed the royal designation in historical context. He traced the evolution of British naval power from the wooden ships of Nelson's era through the steel battleships of the early 20th century to the nuclear submarines that now patrolled the world's oceans as guardians of British security. The royal port of Barrow, Admiral Key declared, represents continuity in the service of British naval supremacy. The submarines constructed in this facility carry forward traditions that stretch back centuries while incorporating technologies that represent the very best of contemporary engineering achievement. Local MP John Woodcock spoke next, emphasizing the significance of royal recognition for a community that had often felt overlooked by national political discourse. He highlighted the economic benefits that would flow from enhanced international recognition while acknowledging the workers whose skills and dedication had made those benefits possible. Today, the entire nation recognizes what we in Barrow have always known, Woodcock told the assembled crowd. The work that takes place in this facility is absolutely vital to British security and prosperity. The men and women who build our submarines deserve not just our gratitude, but our commitment to ensuring that they have the resources and support necessary to continue their crucial work. When King Charles rose to present the Royal Charter, the massive construction hall fell completely silent except for the gentle humming of ventilation systems and the distant sounds of ongoing construction work. He held the ceremonial document that would formalize Barrow's new status, but his words focused on the human achievements that had earned this recognition. The designation of Royal Port, King Charles began, is not granted lightly or frequently. It represents recognition of sustained excellence, strategic importance, and unwavering commitment to the highest standards. The Port of Barrow has earned this honor through more than a century of service to our nation's defense. The King's voice carried clearly throughout the vast space as he continued. The submarines constructed here are marvels of engineering that represent some of humanity's most sophisticated technological achievements. But technology alone does not create these vessels. They are built by skilled hands, guided by experienced minds, and delivered through the dedication of workers who understand that their efforts serve something greater than individual advancement. Today, I am proud to formally designate this facility as the Royal Port of Barrow in recognition of its exceptional contributions to British naval supremacy and industrial excellence. This honor acknowledges not just past achievements, but our confidence in this community's continued role as guardians of British maritime capabilities. King Charles then presented the Royal Charter to Sarah Mitchell, who accepted it on behalf of the entire port community. The document, prepared by royal calligraphers using traditional materials and techniques, will be permanently displayed in the Port Administration Building as tangible evidence of royal recognition. The ceremony concluded with the singing of the national anthem, the voices of hundreds of workers and their families joining together beneath the towering cranes and submarine hulls that define their professional lives. For many in the audience, this moment represented the culmination of careers spent in service to British defense capabilities, finally receiving the public recognition they had always deserved. Following the formal ceremony, King Charles toured additional areas of the facility, including the nuclear reactor manufacturing section, where the most sensitive and technically demanding work took place. The security protocols for this area were extraordinary, reflecting the strategic importance of nuclear propulsion technology and the need to prevent any compromise of British capabilities. The reactor manufacturing facility represented the absolute pinnacle of precision engineering. Components were manufactured to tolerances that pushed the boundaries of current technology, while quality control procedures ensured reliability standards that exceeded those required for any other industrial application. Workers in this section carried the heaviest security clearances and bore ultimate responsibility for the safety of submarine crews. Dr. James Morrison, the facility's chief nuclear engineer, explained to King Charles how reactor components were manufactured, tested, and assembled. The presentation balanced technical detail with accessible explanations that conveyed the extraordinary complexity of nuclear propulsion without revealing sensitive information about specific capabilities or design features. Your Majesty, Dr. Morrison explained, nuclear submarine reactors must operate reliably for 25 years without refueling while providing all the power necessary for propulsion, life support, and mission systems. The engineering challenges involved in achieving such performance are extraordinary, requiring innovations in materials science, nuclear physics, and precision manufacturing. King Charles's questions demonstrated his understanding of both the technical achievements and the strategic implications of nuclear propulsion technology. He clearly appreciated that British submarine capabilities depended not just on current production, but on continued innovation and development that would maintain technological superiority over potential adversaries. The final stop on the royal tour was a meeting with retired workers who had contributed to Barrow's success over previous decades. These men and women represented institutional memory that spanned the entire history of British nuclear submarine development, from the early experimental vessels of the 1960s through the sophisticated platforms currently under construction. Albert Thompson, 82 years old and a veteran of 45 years in submarine construction, had the honor of speaking for this group. His career had encompassed every major milestone in British submarine development, providing him with unique perspectives on the evolution of both technology and workforce capabilities. "Your Majesty," Albert said, "when I started here in the 1960s, we were pioneering technologies that had never been attempted before. Nuclear propulsion was revolutionary, and we were learning as we built. Now, 60 years later, we're still pushing boundaries, still innovating, still setting standards that the rest of the world tries to match." Albert's words captured something essential about Barrow's culture: the combination of respect for tradition with commitment to continuous improvement that had maintained the facility's position at the forefront of submarine technology. Each generation of workers had built upon the achievements of their predecessors while adding their own innovations and refinements. As the royal visit concluded, King Charles took time to meet personally with family members of workers, recognizing that submarine construction required sacrifices not just from employees, but from their loved ones. The security requirements, shift schedules, and travel demands of the industry affected entire families, and royal recognition extended to acknowledging those broader contributions. The departure ceremony was deliberately low-key, reflecting the working character of the facility and the community it served. King Charles spoke briefly with senior managers and local officials, expressing his genuine admiration for what he had witnessed and his confidence in Barrow's continued contributions to British security. As the royal helicopter lifted off and disappeared toward the south, workers throughout the facility returned to their normal duties with a sense of pride and validation that would endure long after the ceremonial decorations were removed. They had shown their king, their nation, and the world what British maritime excellence looked like, and they had been recognized as worthy guardians of traditions that stretched back centuries. 6 months after the royal visit, the transformation of Barrow-in-Furness was evident in ways both dramatic and subtle. The royal port designation had brought more than ceremonial recognition. It had fundamentally altered the community's relationship with the outside world and its own sense of identity. What had once been an industrial town known mainly to defense specialists was now recognized globally as a center of maritime excellence, bearing the personal endorsement of the British Crown. The most visible changes appeared in the form of new investment and expanded operations. BAE Systems announced a £500 million modernization program that would upgrade manufacturing facilities and introduce cutting-edge production technologies. The investment was specifically attributed to increased confidence in Barrow's long-term strategic importance, confidence that had been significantly enhanced by the royal designation. Sarah Mitchell, now director of the Royal Port of Barrow, found herself fielding inquiries from around the world. Naval delegations from Australia, Canada, and Norway had scheduled visits to evaluate British submarine technology for their own defense programs. Each delegation specifically mentioned the royal recognition as evidence of quality and reliability that influenced their procurement decisions. The Australian Navy's interest was particularly significant, as their AUKUS partnership with Britain and the United States represented one of the largest defense contracts in British history. The submarine technology transfer agreement would bring billions of pounds in revenue to British defense contractors while establishing Barrow as the center of a global submarine construction network. Admiral Rebecca Harrison, the Australian Navy's submarine program director, led a comprehensive technical evaluation that demonstrated how royal recognition translated into practical business advantages. Her team spent 2 weeks examining every aspect of British submarine capabilities from design and manufacturing through testing and delivery. The Royal Port designation provides important assurance about the institutional stability and government support that underpins British submarine capabilities, Admiral Harrison explained. When a facility receives royal recognition, it signals long-term commitment that helps justify the massive investments required for submarine acquisition programs. The economic ripple effects extended far beyond direct defense contracts. Hotels throughout Cumbria reported increased bookings from visitors who came specifically to see the Royal Port and learn about submarine construction. The Dock Museum in Barrow developed new exhibitions that showcased the port's royal designation and its historical significance, attracting maritime enthusiasts from across Europe and North America. Local businesses capitalized on the enhanced profile through tourism marketing that emphasized royal connections and maritime heritage. The Furness Peninsula became a destination for specialized industrial tourism, with visitors paying substantial fees for guided tours that explained submarine construction while respecting necessary security limitations. Educational institutions moved quickly to leverage the prestige associated with royal recognition. The University of Cumbria's new Maritime Engineering Institute attracted students from dozens of countries, drawn by the opportunity to study at a facility connected to the Royal Port. Professor Sarah Henderson's research programs received increased funding from both government sources and private industry. The Institute's partnership with BE Systems created unique educational opportunities that combined academic study with hands-on experience in submarine construction. Students worked on real projects under the supervision of experienced engineers, gaining practical skills that made them immediately valuable to employers throughout the maritime industry. Dr. Henderson's own research benefited tremendously from the enhanced international profile. Her work on advanced materials for submarine construction attracted collaboration requests from universities and research institutions worldwide. The royal designation had transformed Barrow from a regional industrial center into a globally recognized hub of maritime innovation. The workforce development implications were equally significant. Applications for apprenticeship programs increased dramatically, allowing BAE Systems to select candidates from a much larger pool of qualified applicants. The quality of incoming apprentices improved measurably, as did their retention rates and performance in training programs. Rebecca Foster, the young apprentice who had demonstrated electrical systems during the royal visit, completed her training with distinction and was selected for an advanced program that would prepare her for supervisory responsibilities. The royal visit had provided her with inspiration and confidence that influenced her entire career trajectory. Meeting the king made me realize how important our work really is, Rebecca reflected. I always knew submarine construction was technically challenging, but understanding that the king personally recognizes our contributions changed how I think about my career. This isn't just a job, it's service to the nation. Rebecca's perspective was shared by hundreds of workers throughout the facility. The royal recognition had elevated their professional identity and enhanced their commitment to maintaining the standards that had earned royal acknowledgement. Quality metrics improved across all aspects of submarine construction, from initial design through final delivery. International recognition brought unexpected opportunities for technology transfer and partnership development. The Swedish Navy, which operated its own submarine construction programs, proposed joint research initiatives that would combine British nuclear propulsion expertise with Swedish innovations in submarine stealth technology. Similar proposals arrived from Japan, South Korea, and other maritime nations that recognize British submarine capabilities as world-leading. Each partnership opportunity represented potential revenue streams and technology sharing agreements that would enhance British capabilities while generating substantial economic benefits for the Barrow community. The diplomatic implications were equally important. British submarines served as symbols of national power and technological sophistication that enhanced Britain's influence in international maritime affairs. The royal designation reinforced these symbolic aspects while providing tangible evidence of government support for maritime capabilities. Foreign naval attaches regularly visited the royal port as part of diplomatic missions, using submarine tours as opportunities to discuss broader security cooperation and alliance relationships. These visits strengthened bilateral relationships while showcasing British technological achievements to key international partners. The community transformation extended beyond economic and strategic considerations to encompass cultural and social changes. Local arts organizations developed programming that celebrated maritime heritage and royal connections. The annual Barrow Maritime Festival expanded significantly, attracting visitors from across the United Kingdom and international maritime communities. Cultural initiatives emphasized the connection between traditional craftsmanship and cutting-edge technology that defined modern submarine construction. Local artists created installations that interpreted industrial processes through contemporary artistic perspectives, while historians documented personal stories that illustrated how individual workers contributed to broader national achievements. The Barrow Male Voice Choir, a century-old institution that had always drawn membership from shipyard workers, commissioned new compositions that celebrated the royal designation. Their performances at maritime festivals and cultural events became popular attractions that combined musical excellence with community pride in industrial achievement. Religious communities throughout Barrow found ways to incorporate gratitude for royal recognition into their regular worship and community service activities. Interfaith cooperation strengthened as different religious traditions discovered shared values around service, craftsmanship, and community solidarity that transcended denominational differences. Father Patrick O'Brien organized an interfaith Thanksgiving service that brought together Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, and other religious communities in celebration of the royal honor. The service emphasized spiritual dimensions of work that serves the common good, while acknowledging the diverse traditions that contributed to Barrow's multicultural identity. The environmental implications of enhanced submarine construction activity prompted significant investments in sustainability initiatives. BAE Systems implemented comprehensive recycling programs, energy efficiency improvements, and pollution control measures that exceeded regulatory requirements. The royal designation created expectations for exemplary environmental performance that matched the facility's enhanced profile. Renewable energy projects expanded throughout the region, with offshore wind farms providing clean electricity for submarine construction operations. The combination of maritime expertise and environmental consciousness created opportunities for Barrow to become a center for offshore renewable energy development, as well as submarine construction. Local government officials worked systematically to ensure that economic benefits from the royal designation would be distributed fairly throughout the community. Housing development programs provided affordable options for workers whose incomes had increased due to enhanced demand for their skills. Infrastructure improvements enhanced transportation, communications, and public services. Jennifer Murphy, the council leader, coordinated comprehensive planning initiatives that balanced economic growth with quality of life considerations. The goal was sustainable prosperity that would benefit all residents while maintaining the community character that had made Barrow's achievements possible. Royal recognition brings opportunities, but it also brings responsibilities, Murphy explained to community leaders. We need to ensure that growth enhances rather than undermines the values and relationships that earned us this honor. Success should strengthen our community, not divide it. The international submarine market continued evolving in ways that favored British capabilities and enhanced the strategic value of the Royal Port designation. Emerging threats from hostile nations with advanced submarine programs created demand for the most sophisticated underwater warfare capabilities available, areas where British technology maintained clear advantages. NATO alliance requirements for submarine interoperability favored British designs that had been proven compatible with American and Allied systems. The AUKUS partnership positioned British submarine technology as the foundation for expanded Allied submarine capabilities that would maintain Western maritime supremacy for decades. Research and development investments accelerated as British defense contractors recognized the competitive advantages created by royal recognition. Advanced manufacturing techniques, artificial intelligence applications, and revolutionary propulsion concepts were being explored in Barrow laboratories that attracted the world's leading maritime engineers. Dr. Elizabeth Warner's submarine design team received funding for research into revolutionary propulsion systems that could provide unprecedented speed and stealth capabilities. The projects were highly classified, but their existence demonstrated continued government commitment to maintaining Barrow's position at the forefront of submarine technology. The human dimension of royal recognition continued developing in unexpected ways. Workers throughout the facility reported increased job satisfaction and professional pride that translated into improved performance and innovation. The psychological impact of royal acknowledgement had created a positive cycle that enhanced every aspect of submarine construction. Tommy Richardson, the experienced welder who had spoken with King Charles during the royal visit, became something of a celebrity within the maritime community. His expertise was sought by technical publications and professional organizations, providing him with platforms to explain the craftsmanship traditions that complemented high-technology manufacturing. The king understood what we do here, Tommy reflected. He recognized that building submarines requires not just fancy equipment, but skilled people who take pride in their work. That recognition has made all of us better at our jobs. Quality improvements resulting from enhanced worker motivation were measurable in terms of reduced error rates, faster construction schedules, and improved reliability of delivered submarines. The Royal Navy reported exceptional performance from vessels constructed after the royal designation, validating the positive effects of enhanced worker pride and commitment. The legacy aspects of royal recognition were already becoming apparent in community institutions and cultural traditions. Local schools incorporated the royal designation into their identity and curriculum, helping students understand their community's unique role in British maritime defense. Young people throughout the region began considering careers in submarine construction with enhanced enthusiasm and understanding. The royal recognition had transformed perceptions of maritime work from local industrial employment to participation in nationally significant activities that carried royal endorsement. As the first anniversary of the royal visit approached, planning began for commemorative events that would celebrate the achievements of the past year while looking forward to future opportunities. The Royal Port of Barrow had established itself not just as a title, but as a symbol of excellence that inspired continued innovation and dedication. The transformation was complete in ways that went far beyond formal recognition. Barrow had evolved from an industrial town that happened to build submarines into a global center of maritime excellence that carried royal endorsement. The change in identity had unleashed creative and entrepreneurial energies that were reshaping the entire region. International visitors continued arriving weekly, drawn by the combination of royal recognition, technical excellence, and cultural authenticity that made Barrow unique among industrial centers. Each visitor represented potential partnerships, investment opportunities, or educational exchanges that would further enhance the community's global connections. The Royal Port designation had achieved its intended purpose of recognizing exceptional achievement while inspiring continued excellence. King Charles's decision to honor Barrow had created a positive transformation that extended far beyond the maritime industry to encompass an entire community's aspirations and achievements. Looking toward the future, residents of Barrow faced unprecedented opportunities with confidence grounded in royal recognition of their capabilities. The submarines they built would continue protecting British interests around the world, but they would do so knowing that their constructors had received the highest possible acknowledgement of their contributions to national security and maritime excellence. The Royal Port of Barrow stood ready to meet whatever challenges and opportunities the future might bring, secure in the knowledge that their king had personally validated their importance to British prosperity and security. The honor would endure as long as British submarines sailed the world's oceans, a permanent testament to the skill, dedication, and patriotism of the workers who had earned royal recognition through excellence in service to their nation.